Welcome to Sci-Fi Frontier. I'm Dominic, and in this episode, I'm going to be talking about the latest chapter in The Mandalorian, Chapter 4, Sanctuary. So, now I'm going to be going into spoilers because I really can't review anything without spoiling it. That's just me. But first, I'm going to give my quick non-spoiler review. It's a good, solid episode. Go watch it. Okay, that's my spoiler-free review. So now I'm going to get into heavy spoilers. So in this episode, immediately picks up where the last one left off. So the Mandalorian's on the run. He's got all these bounty hunters after him. So he's looking for a planet he can go hide. So he scans this system and he finds a planet that's sparsely populated. It doesn't have much technology on it. It's way out of the way. And so perfect spot, he goes there to hide. Now on this planet is a group of farmers who are getting raided by what I call space orcs. So their little farms constantly getting attacked and they're getting bullied by these space orcs. So the Mandalorian lands there and he goes to this settlement where there's this bar and he's looking to lay low, but then he sees a woman who looks very suspicious. He thinks she's a bounty hunter, this woman named Cara Dune. And so he thinks she's a bounty hunter looking for him, and she thinks that he's a bounty hunter looking for her because she used to be with the Rebel Alliance. And then now she's kind of like a paid mercenary, kind of a gun for hire. And so anyway, they end up getting into a big scrap outside this bar, and they basically fight to a draw. And then they realize that, neither one of them are bounty hunters after each other. So then they end up go back into the bar, have a drink together. And then the Mandalorian is going to leave the planet. Then the farmers find out he's on this planet. They offer him some money to not leave, and he at first doesn't want to take the money, but then he realizes they live in a remote farm that's away from everything. So this is like the perfect spot for him to hide. So him and this mercenary girl, they go there to hide out. And in return, they're going to defend them from the space orcs. But then they find out that the space orcs have an AT-ST. So one of those imperial two-legged landwalkers, as I always call them. And at first they tell the farmers, like, you can't win this. There's no way you're going to win. You should just up and leave. But they say, no, this is our home and we can't go. So then they decide, Mandalorian and Cara decide they're going to teach him how to fight, and they're going to set up a trap basically to take out this Mandalorian. So in short, they end up winning, and they take out the two-legged landwalker. They work together and all this, and they end up saving the day. Now when I was watching this episode, everything about it seemed very familiar. And the reason for that is because it is a very familiar story, and it's almost cliched, and you've seen it lots. It's basically the story of the stranger comes to town story. And you've seen this a lot in Westerns, because basically this is what The Mandalorian is. It's a space Western. And so this is what this episode is. And it reminded me of one Western in particular, a Western called Pale Rider that starred Clint Eastwood. And when I was growing up, I wasn't a huge Western fan, but this is one that I watched over and over again. And so this episode of The Mandalorian has basically the exact same story as Clint Eastwood's Pale Rider. And that movie, same thing. But that one, it's a little mining community that's getting bullied by this rich guy in the nearby town. And him and his goons are trying to bully them out of the mining area so they can get in there and mine it themselves. So Clint Eastwood, he's very much like the Mandalorian, very stoic, very, goes in there, and he ends up teaching them how to fight back, and he ends up saving the village and getting rid of the bullies. And this is the same thing. And even to the point where in that movie, Pale Rider, one of the women kind of had a thing for Clint Eastwood. And it's the same thing with this one. There's a woman who's kind of like the head of the village. She seems like she's kind of leader. She kind of ends up kind of developing a thing for the Mandalorian. She kind of likes him. And then at the end, she wants him to stay, but realizes that he can't, because he was actually going to leave Baby Yoda there because it was a nice place you can have a childhood. But then he realizes all these bounty hunters are still after Baby Yoda because one shows up and tries to take out Baby Yoda, but Cara Dune shoots him before he has a chance. So the Mandalorian realizes, hey, can't stay, gotta leave. So it's that type of story. Now, even though it's a cliched story and you've seen it done lots, it's still a really good episode. And again, it had a lot of good action in it. And the character of Cara Dune I thought was really good. And I really like that actress, Gina Carano. She is a former MMA fighter, and I like it because she looks like she can actually fight, because she can actually fight because she's a former MMA. So her fight scenes are always like really well done, and they always look very realistic. And in this sense, she actually looks like she could take the Mandalorian. Like she's pretty buff looking in this episode. And so anyway, now the only thing I thought they would maybe like become partners and she would be in every other episode, but they kind of part ways at the end of this episode and she goes on her way. So maybe she's going to be a character that comes in and out of the series, but not there in every single episode. Now, the other thing about this, one thing I wanted to touch on real quick, I pretty much liked everything about this episode. It was a pretty solid episode. I didn't think it was quite as good as the last one, but this one is still pretty good. I mean, there hasn't been any episodes that have been bad so far in this series, in my opinion. But in this one, I saw, well, not this episode, but when I woke up this morning, I saw Ethan Van Sciver had already had a review of this episode up. Now, I'm subscribed to his channel and watch some of his videos, but in the thumbnail, now I haven't watched it yet, but in the thumbnail, he talks about how, now in this episode, the SJW infection has reasserted itself. Kind of, that was something similar to that. So I watched the episode looking for something like that. And now, in my opinion, honestly, I could not see it. Couldn't see it at all in this episode. So I don't know what he's talking about. I'll go after and watch his video to see what he's talking about. So the only thing maybe is the woman who's kind of in charge of the village bosses a couple of the guys around during the fight. But that's nothing. And I think this is like a case of, this series is kind of weird because I'm seeing like on Twitter, you got people who are anti SJWs and people who are SJWs. They're just waiting for something to pop up to get mad about in this series. That's what it seems like to me. Kind of have that on both sides. Now I can see a lot of things in this episode that an SJW would get mad about because the woman who's in head of the village ends up bringing the Mandalorian meals, cooks him a few meals and delivers it to him, and so it's a very traditional housewife almost role for her in this episode, and that he could settle down with this widow and almost have this 1950s lifestyle with the little Yoda guy playing out in the front yard while she brings him his supper, stuff like that. So I could see there's lots in this episode I could see like an SJW getting mad about. But what Ethan Van Sciver was talking about, I don't know. And this is the thing that I've talked about before, is if you're going to call out everything as an SJW thing, then nothing is SJW. If everything is, then nothing is. So, it's just like going overboard, and then it gets to the point where you're just becoming a mirror image of what you're fighting. You're becoming just as bad as what you're fighting. You're just looking for something to be mad about or offended about. So, in my opinion, there's nothing in this episode that is like that. It's just a good, solid episode. Besides the story being cliched, and it's something you've seen a lot, especially if you watched a lot of Westerns. Or even there's another one. It's almost kind of like Fist of the North Star had an episode like that where Kenshiro showed up at a village that was getting bullied by a biker gang, and he ends up, completely obliterating the biker gang and saving the village. It's the same thing. You've seen the story lots. The stranger comes to town. The town is getting bullied, and a stranger shows up and fixes things for them. And that's what this episode is. It's a stranger comes to town episode, and it's a really good, solid episode. So that's everything I got to say in this video. Let me know what you think in the comments section, and I will see you at the next one. Thank you to all of my subscribers, and thank you for watching this video. And if you're new to the channel, like, subscribe, and share. And don't forget to hit the bell icon for notification when new videos are uploaded.